I've actually wanted to do this shop hopping video for a long time, but lately I've been tied out working my reviews for the domestic video platform, so I haven't really had the time to edit this one, which is why this video ended up being delayed for quite a while. Specifically, this one is about some of the interesting hi-fi stores around Tokyo. So, if you are planning a visit, maybe you can use this video as a reference and explore along the way. Of course, aside from the dedicated hi-fi shops, there are also plenty of other places where you can find audio-related stuff. For example, most Surugaya and Shinban stores actually have CD sections. You can score some really cheap secondhand CDs, mostly J-pop and anime tracks of course, which make them absolutely worth checking out as well. Anyway, back to the hi-fi shops. I picked 7 places that I personally found pretty interesting. The furthest one out is the Hard Off in Kichijoji. Then there's Fujiya, located in中野Broadway. The rest are mostly clustered around Akihabara. So, let's start with one that is furthest away, the Hard Off in Kichijoji. This Hard Off has 3 floors. The first floor is mostly game consoles and random electronics. The second floor is all musical instruments, and the third floor is where the hi-fi stuff is. That hi-fi section is mainly vinyl records, speaker, and big amplifiers. What's actually pretty interesting is how cheap the vinyl is here. If you convert to US dollar, it's probably below $1. At this price, I assume these records have been played a lot, probably show pretty obvious wear. Back when I was in the UK, most second-hand shops would somehow label the condition of the vinyl. You'd see grades like mint, very good, good plus, fair, poor, etc. etc. Basically ranking how playable the record still is. The worse the condition, the more time it's being played and the more noise you are going to hear. The second floor is mostly instruments, guitars, pedals, that kind of thing. The first floor is actually where a lot of fun stuff is. For sure you can find cartridges for recent console, like Switch, PS5, etc. But funny thing is that you can also find old game cartridges from way back. I had a PS Vita a long time ago. I think it was back in junior high school and I paid over 2000 RMB for it back then, which is around $300. And I honestly didn't expect them still to go around for the same price on the second-hand market right now. Besides game consoles, there are also some cameras here. A lot of them are really old film cameras. Some are junk and some might still work, but they're selling them at a rather cheap price.
你要把一个胶卷塞进去，然后打一下它就会释放快门，然后这个东西会咔嗒一下，跟我那个是一样的。我那个是模拟这种胶卷的这个声音来做出来。
Overall, there's just a bunch of random, strange and interesting little stuff scattered all around. If you are into digging and browsing, this place is definitely worth poking around for a bit. The second stop is Fujiya, located in Nakano Broadway. You probably recognize the name because they shows up and organize quite a few audio events and exhibitions in Japan if I remember correctly. The store itself is on the 3rd floor. Just follow Google Maps in Nakano Broadway. Hop in the elevator or go straight up to the 3rd floor by stairs. Inside is basically all headphone related stuff. IEM full-size headphones and a decent amount of desktop gear as well. There's also this little junk corner, basically discontinued odds and ends at fairly cheap price. Stuff like return TWS, screen protector, leader cases, that sort of thing. They do have quite a few desktop setups too. I took a quick look at the prices. The TT2 is noticeably more expensive than back home in China, but something like the Stax T8000 actually comes out to under 20,000 RMB, which is roughly around 3,000 US dollar. So that one is quite a bargain, I think. Oh, and quick tip. Mandarake is right downstairs. That place mainly sells anime stuff and is absolutely worth checking out. The main Mandarake building, or should I say headquarters, is over Akihabara, right next to the main Surugaya store. It's a huge all-black building, and yeah, the entire building is Mandarake. From here on, most of the shops are clustered around Akihabara. The next stop is Audio Union. You can just take the train to JR Ochanomizu and walk from there. Audio Union sells pretty much everything, from big stuff like speaker and full-sized systems, all the way down to the power cable, loose wires and accessories. Technically, filming isn't allowed inside. I asked the staff first and only recorded a small part of the headphone and speaker sectors. If this place sounds interesting to you, it's probably better to just come and browse in person. After that, the next stop is the well-known e-earphone. But before heading there, you can make a quick detour to the Surugaya near JR Akihabara. This is one of the spots I mentioned earlier where you can find some really cheap secondhand CDs. The second floor is almost entirely used CDs. And then there's e-earphone. As the name suggests, it's all about headphones. Every kind you can think of. True wireless, wired, and full-size headphones. DAPs, desktop amp, and DACs. Basically everything audio related. This store has 7 floors and honestly, it's absolutely worth the visit. I actually went back again around New Year Day and picked up the Fostex TH910 here. And I have to say, the service is genuinely great. It was snowing that day, and after packing the headphones in a paper bag, they added an extra plastic cover on the outside, just to make sure snow wouldn't soak the box. It's little detail like that where you really feel how thoughtful the service culture is in Japan. Next is the BicCamera. It's right at one of the main intersections you pass through on the way to Akihabara, so it's really hard to miss. It's basically a huge department store. The third floor is where all the headphones are, and it's actually a pretty big section. They sell everything from entry-level consumer stuff to IEMs and full-size headphones, kind of like e-earphone in that sense. They also have 1 or 2 full aisles just for ear tips. I'm not sure if it's an anti-theft thing or what, but instead of actual tips, you'll see cards hanging here. You take the card to the counter and they'll give you the actual products. That said, the ear tips here are all available for demo. You can just find them inside this box. Speaking of BicCamera, you just can't ignore the other department store giants, Yodobashi Camera. Just like Bic, they sell pretty much everything, but they also have a dedicated hi-fi section, and honestly, the scale is on another level. Yodobashi has an entire floor filled with headphones, speakers, and home setups. That said, their floor plan can be a bit misleading. At first glance, you might think the second floor is where the headphones are, but that floor is actually all about gaming gear and gaming headphones. I got fooled on my first day and walked around and thought, wait, is that it? Later that day, when I was back in the hotel, I looked it up online and realized, no way, Yodobashi is supposed to have a whole floor for hi-fi. Overall, it's similar to BicCamera, but just bigger with some more complete selection. Pretty much every IEM you can think of is here. One interesting thing I noticed, a lot of brands that are made in China but not sold domestically, especially those distributed overseas by Linso, brands like Zigats, Kiwi Ears, and others, are actually very easy to find here. And one thing Yodobashi really does well is that it doesn't just stop at headphones. They also sell speakers and even have a full wall of used gear on display. Seeing an entire wall packed with second-hand equipment is honestly pretty impressive. There's also an Oyaide retail store in Akihabara. You can pick up all kinds of loose cable and connectors here. The last stop is Dynamic Audio 55555. Filming isn't allowed here as well, so I asked first and only grabbed a bit of footage. This place is mostly about high-end gear, big floor standard like YG and Bower Wilkins, and things like Accuphase and Esoteric. If you are mainly into headphones though, this probably isn't the best stop. You are better off sticking with e-Earphone, BicCamera or Yodobashi. But if you are into the high-end stuff, this is the place you should definitely take a visit. And that's pretty much it. That wraps up this Tokyo headphone shop tour. I'll see you next time.